In the 4th century BC, Greek and Latin writers recorded reports of a formidable military power in the riverlands of Bengal. They called them the Gangaridae. Their massive armies and disciplined war elephants terrified even the veteran soldiers of Alexander the Great. But an army of that scale requires a massive hidden engine to feed, equip, and direct it. Beneath the armor and the spears was an intricate, highly developed system of taxation, resource management, and provincial control. In the ancient world, complex administration was a literal defense mechanism. Without laws to mediate disputes or clerks to track grain harvests, the dense, flood-prone geography of the river delta would quickly consume any human settlement. The history of Bengal is an epic, thousand-year effort to build, refine, and defend systems of order. It is an ongoing campaign to construct a state apparatus strong enough to hold back the natural decay of society. By the 4th century AD, the imperial Guptas absorbed Bengal into their expanding territory. To manage this vast and fragmented landscape, they implemented a strict top-down hierarchy of delegation. They carved the empire into massive provinces known as buktis. Each bukti was overseen by an uparika, a royal deputy or prince appointed directly by the emperor to enforce order across the region. Below the provincial level, the land was sectioned again. These smaller units were called visayas, functioning much like modern administrative districts. Historical texts and scholarly records preserve this structure. This index outlines the specific role of the Visayapati, the chief district officer tasked with maintaining local stability under the Guptas. Our physical proof of this system survives in artifacts like the Damodarpur copper plates. These metallic documents acted as permanent registers, permanently recording land sales, boundaries, and official titles, confirming that this bureaucracy was highly active. With this nested hierarchy in place, the imperial administration could project power across the entire river-woven delta, stabilizing the distant landscape through a clear and reliable chain of command. That chain of command eventually snapped. Following the decline of the Guptas and the death of the regional king Shashanka in the 7th century, Bengal suddenly lost its central authority. What followed was a brutal 100-year collapse. Local chiefs and warlords fought for territory. Stronger factions consumed weaker ones, taking land, crops, and lives without any fear of legal reprisal. Historical texts describe this century of anarchy as Matsya Nayam, the law of the fishes, where the big fish devour the small. There were no tax collectors to fund defensive walls and no judges to settle property disputes. Without a functioning administrative backbone to enforce rules, the social contract dissolved entirely into a violent struggle for basic survival. Order was restored in the mid-8th century by the Pala Dynasty. They pulled Bengal out of the ashes, establishing a stable government that would control the region for 400 years. The Palas used their restored authority to actively shape the environment. Their administration directed the construction of extensive canal networks, reservoirs, and embankments to secure a steady water supply and protect the population from severe monsoon floods. To manage this vast public works and revenue operation, they built a highly specialized central executive body. At the top was the king, flanked by the crown prince, or Yuvaraja, who governed key provinces and led military campaigns. Look at this documentation of their cabinet structure. High on this list is the Sandhi Vigrahika, the elite minister directing foreign diplomacy, managing alliances, and executing the delicate policies of peace and war. The Palas proved that a robust government could actively engineer economic prosperity and insulate its people from the volatility of nature. Towards the end of the 11th century, power shifted to the Sena dynasty. Originating from southern India, the Senas brought all of Bengal under a single, intensely centralized rule. They tightened their grip on society by linking the state directly to religious institutions. The monarchs granted large tracts of land to head priests, known as Purohitas, writing their cultural authority into the administrative hierarchy. To monitor every aspect of this centralized state, the Senas expanded their bureaucracy. Official copper plate records from the era list 29 distinct classes of officers managing the kingdom. By combining extreme bureaucratic density with religious authority, the Senas created an airtight system of governance, ensuring stability by strictly regulating the social hierarchy. When Muslim rule arrived in Bengal with Bakhtiar Khilji in 1204, the Turco-Afghan leaders recognized the value of the existing framework. They retained the decentralized hierarchy, transitioning the ancient provinces from buktis to iklims. Under the independent sultanate, local control was highly specific. Shikdars were appointed to oversee military matters and revenue collection in local districts, while provincial qazis managed civil affairs and religious endowments. The system reached its peak under the Mughal Empire. Bengal was designated as a master province, or suba, which was systematically subdivided into smaller districts called sarkars, and further down into local parganas. This survey map illustrates the result of that effort. The Mughals, and later the British, relied on exactly this kind of intense geographical cataloging. Every boundary and river bend was documented to extract maximum revenue. This strict oversight produced massive agricultural surpluses and textiles, generating immense wealth and establishing Bengal as the most valuable territory in the Mughal Empire. The Mughals achieved this supremacy by laying their vast imperial oversight network directly over the local administrative tiers that had been operating for centuries. When the British East India Company took control, they introduced their own layer of authority. They deployed district collectors and magistrates to enforce law and ensure a continuous flow of revenue back to London. But these colonial administrators were operating inside a deeply entrenched framework. They were retrofitting a system originally poured by the Guptas, expanded by the Palas, and optimized by the Mughals. Over 2 millennia, the imperial flags, the titles of the officials, and the languages of the courts constantly shifted. Yet the persistent link between the government and the riverlands remained constant. The enduring legacy of Bengal is its invisible machinery. This continuous chain of administrators, record-keepers, and magistrates represents civilization's lasting triumph, keeping the delta safe from the unforgiving law of the fishes.